I told my husband I'd choose one night out with my ex over his feelings, and I thought it was just another Tuesday argument that would blow over by morning. How wrong I was. "Caleb, you're being ridiculous," I said, adjusting my makeup in our bedroom mirror. The black dress hugged my curves perfectly, and I knew it. It's just dinner with old friends. Jasper will be there, sure, but so will everyone else from college. Caleb sat on the edge of our bed, still in his work clothes, from the accounting office at Lincoln Elementary. His tie was loosened, and those deep-set brown eyes held something I couldn't quite read. "Ivadne, you know how I feel about this. Jasper isn't just some random college friend. He's my former best friend who's been trying to get back into your life for months." I rolled my eyes, applying another coat of lipstick. "God, you sound so paranoid. We dated for like 6 months in college, Caleb. That was over a decade ago. You're acting like I'm planning to run away with him." "I'm not paranoid. I'm concerned about my wife spending the evening with a man who still calls you beautiful in every text message he sends." The accusation hung in the air. I turned from the mirror, crossing my arms. "Are you reading my messages now?" "I don't need to read them. You leave your phone face up on the kitchen counter every morning while you shower. The notifications speak for themselves." Heat rose in my cheeks. "So what if he's friendly? That's just how Jasper is. He's always been charming and complimentary. It doesn't mean anything." Caleb stood up slowly, his methodical nature showing even in how he approached conflict. "Ivadne, I'm asking you not to go. Not because I don't trust you, but because I don't trust him. And honestly, I don't trust how much you're enjoying his attention." Something snapped inside me. Maybe it was the stress from work, or maybe it was the way Caleb's quiet, reserved personality had started to feel suffocating compared to Jasper's easy laughter and constant validation. "You know what, Caleb? If I had to choose between one night out with Jasper and your feelings, I'd choose the night out. At least he makes me feel alive, instead of like I'm slowly disappearing into suburban mediocrity." The words hung between us like a slap. Caleb's face didn't change expression, but something shifted in his eyes. Instead of the hurt or anger I expected, he just nodded slowly. "Okay," he said quietly. "I want you to put that in writing." I laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off our bedroom walls. "Are you serious? What are you, my lawyer?" "Just so we're both clear about where we stand." He pulled out his phone and opened a note. "Say it again." "Caleb, you're being dramatic." "Say it again, Ivadne. If you mean it, say it again." The challenge in his voice made me defiant. "Fine. If I had to choose between one night out with my ex and your feelings, I'd choose the night out. There. Happy?" He typed the sentence exactly as I said it, then sent it to himself and archived it. No threats, no insults, just documentation. "What the hell was that about?" I demanded. "Nothing. Have fun tonight." He walked past me toward the bathroom. "I'll probably be asleep when you get home." Something felt off about his calm response, but I was too angry and too excited about the evening ahead to analyze it. I grabbed my purse and headed downstairs. Before leaving, I called my mother, Roxana, from the kitchen. "Mom, Caleb's being impossible about tonight." "Honey, you're 32 years old," came her familiar voice through the phone. "You don't need permission to have dinner with friends. Caleb needs to stop being so insecure and let you live a little. Marriage doesn't mean imprisonment." That's exactly what I told him. "Thanks, Mom." "Go have fun, sweetheart. Don't let his jealousy ruin your evening." I hung up feeling validated and headed out to my car. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Caleb watching from our bedroom window. Instead of waving, he just stood there, perfectly still, like he was memorizing something. Jasper's apartment hadn't changed much since college. The same leather couch, the same cluttered coffee table covered with old magazines and empty beer bottles. But seeing him again after 3 months made my heart race in a way that felt both familiar and dangerous. "Ivadne, you look absolutely stunning," he said, pulling me into a hug that lasted just a beat too long. I can't believe Caleb almost kept you from coming tonight. He didn't keep me from anything. I make my own decisions. Jasper grinned, that same crooked smile that had charmed me in college. That's the Ivadne I remember. Independent, confident, absolutely magnetic. We talked for hours about old times, about dreams we'd abandoned, about the paths our lives had taken. Jasper was working in marketing for a tech startup, traveling constantly, living the kind of exciting life that made my job as a marketing coordinator at a local firm seem painfully ordinary. "Remember when we talked about traveling to Italy together?" he asked, refilling my wine glass for the third time. "You had that whole plan mapped out. Florence, Rome, Venice." "That was a long time ago, Jasper." "Was it, though? You're still the same person, Ivadne. Still beautiful, still brilliant, still full of dreams. Marriage doesn't have to mean giving up who you are." His hand found mine across the coffee table, and I didn't pull away. Caleb doesn't understand that part of me. He wants predictability, routine, quiet evenings at home. Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating. You deserve better than that. You deserve someone who sees how incredible you are, who wants to explore the world with you instead of hiding from it. The conversation grew more intimate as the evening progressed. We talked about regrets, about roads not taken, about the spark that had never quite died between us. When Jasper leaned in to kiss me, I didn't stop him. It was past midnight when I finally drove home, my head spinning with wine and possibility. The house felt different when I walked in. Too neat, too empty. Caleb's coffee mug wasn't in the sink where he usually left it. His jacket wasn't draped over the kitchen chair. I climbed the stairs quietly, expecting to find him asleep in our bed. Instead, I found our bedroom empty and the guest room door closed. I could hear the soft sound of his breathing from behind it. In the hallway, I noticed something else. Our framed wedding photo, the one that had hung by the stairs for 5 years, was gone. In its place was just a clean rectangular outline on the wallpaper. I stood there for a long moment, wine-fuzzy and confused. This wasn't the reaction I'd expected. Where were the angry texts demanding to know where I was? Where was the confrontation about coming home late? Where was the fight that would end with him begging me to choose him over everyone else? Instead, there was just silence and the unsettling realization that Caleb wasn't punishing me. He was practicing life without me. The next morning, I woke up alone in our king-sized bed with a hangover and a growing sense of unease. Caleb was already gone for work, but he'd left coffee in the pot and a note on the kitchen counter. "Meeting with Tom after work, home late." C. No. "Good morning." No. "How was your evening?" No acknowledgement of our argument or the fact that he'd slept in the guest room. Just practical information delivered in his neat accountant's handwriting. I tried calling him around lunch, but it went straight to voicemail. When I texted asking if we could talk, he responded 3 hours later with a simple, "Busy day, talk tonight." That evening, I met my sister Lynn for dinner at Romano's, our usual spot downtown. Lynn was 4 years younger than me, but had always been the more practical one. She worked as a nurse at the county hospital and had a way of cutting through drama with surgical precision. "You look tired," she said as I slid into the booth across from her. "Caleb's being weird. We had a fight last night and now he's giving me the silent treatment." "What kind of fight?" I told her about the evening with Jasper, though I left out the kiss. "He's being completely unreasonable about me having male friends. It's like he wants to control every aspect of my social life." Lynn stirred her iced tea slowly, studying my face. "Ivadne, be honest with me. Is something going on with you and this Jasper guy?" "Of course not. We're just friends. Old friends catching up." "Friends don't usually cause this kind of drama in a marriage." "The drama is coming from Caleb's insecurity, not from anything I'm doing wrong. Mum agrees with me completely." Lynn's expression tightened. "Mum's not married, Ivadne. She's been divorced twice. Maybe her advice about marriage isn't the best guidance." Whose side are you on here? I'm on the side of your marriage. Caleb's a good man. He's stable, he's loyal, he loves you. If he's concerned about this Jasper situation, maybe you should listen to him instead of dismissing his feelings. I felt my defenses rising. So I'm supposed to give up my friendships because my husband is jealous? You're supposed to prioritize your marriage over attention from other men. The accusation stung because it hit too close to home. It's not about attention. Isn't it? When's the last time you talked about Caleb the way your eyes lit up when you mentioned Jasper just now? I couldn't answer that question, so I changed the subject. But Lynn's words followed me home, where I found Caleb in his study, working on his laptop with the door open, but his attention completely focused on the screen. How was your day? I asked from the doorway. Fine. Yours? Fine. Caleb, about last night. What about it? His tone wasn't angry or hurt. It was neutral, professional, like I was a client inquiring about tax preparation services. Somehow, that was worse than anger would have been. I think we should talk about what happened. I think we already said everything that needed to be said. He didn't look up from his laptop. You made your priorities clear. I'm just adjusting my expectations accordingly. Adjusting your expectations? What does that mean? It means I understand where I stand now. It's actually helpful to have clarity. The conversation felt like trying to grab smoke. Every time I thought I could pin down his emotions, they slipped away into this maddening calm. Are you punishing me by sleeping in the guest room? I'm not punishing you. I'm giving you space to make whatever choices you want to make without having to consider my feelings. Isn't that what you wanted? I stood there for a long moment, waiting for him to look at me, to show some sign of the hurt or anger that would give me something to work with. Instead, he just kept typing, his wedding ring catching the light from his desk lamp. I'm going to bed, I finally said. Good night, Ivadne. The next few days followed the same pattern: polite distance, practical communication, and an absence of the emotional reactions I'd come to expect from conflict. Caleb went to work, came home, made dinner for himself, and spent his evenings in the study or guest room. He was perfectly civil, but it felt like living with a polite stranger. Meanwhile, Jasper had been texting me constantly. Funny memes, memories from our evening together, suggestions for lunch dates or coffee meetings. The attention felt like sunlight after days of Caleb's cool shadows. Friday evening, I decided to meet some friends at Murphy's Bar downtown. Sarah, Jennifer, and Michelle were all married women from my marketing network, and I knew they'd understand the situation better than Lynn had. Men are so dramatic about friendships, Sarah said after I'd explained the situation. My husband used to get jealous every time I mentioned my personal trainer. I had to sit him down and explain that I'm allowed to have male friends without it meaning anything. Exactly, Jennifer agreed. It sounds like Caleb's being controlling. You're an adult. You can have dinner with whoever you want. I felt validated for the first time in days. That's what I keep trying to tell him. Jasper and I are just friends. Is he cute? Michelle asked with a grin. Very, I admitted, and we all laughed. Well, there you go. Caleb's probably intimidated. Men hate when their wives have attractive male friends because it makes them insecure about their own appeal. The conversation continued in that vein for an hour, with my friends painting Caleb as an insecure, controlling husband and me as a victim of his jealousy. By the time I got home, I felt completely justified in my position. Caleb was in the kitchen when I walked in, washing his single dinner plate and coffee mug. How was your evening? He asked without turning around. Good. I was with Sarah, Jennifer, and Michelle at Murphy's. That's nice. His lack of interest stung. We talked about you, actually. I'm sure you did. They think you're being unreasonable about the Jasper situation. Caleb dried his hands on the kitchen towel and turned to face me. What did you tell them about the Jasper situation? The truth, that you're jealous of me having a male friend. Did you tell them about your conversation with Jasper the other night? The one where you talked about feeling suffocated in our marriage and how he makes you feel more alive than I do. My blood ran cold. How do you know about that? You were talking pretty loudly when you came home. Sound carries in this house. You were eavesdropping. I was lying awake in the guest room, wondering if my wife was going to come home at all. When I heard you on the phone in the kitchen, I couldn't help but listen. The calm in his voice was terrifying. Caleb, that conversation wasn't what? It wasn't honest, because it sounded pretty honest to me. I scrambled for an explanation. I was drunk. I was venting. It doesn't mean anything. Ivadne, you told another man that you feel suffocated in our marriage. You told him that he makes you feel more alive than your husband does. You told him that I don't understand who you are. Those aren't drunk words. Those are true words that alcohol made you brave enough to say. So what are you saying? I'm saying that your friends are giving you advice based on incomplete information. They think this is about me being jealous of your friendship, but we both know this isn't about friendship anymore. He walked past me toward the stairs, then paused. For what it's worth, Ivadne, I don't blame you for feeling suffocated. I've been trying to hold on to something that doesn't want to be held. That's my mistake, not yours. I watched him climb the stairs, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt genuinely afraid. Not of Caleb, but of the possibility that he was giving up on us entirely. Monday morning brought an unexpected complication. I was barely settled at my desk when Karen from HR knocked on my office door. Ivadne, do you have a minute? We need to talk. My stomach dropped. Karen was in her 50s, strictly professional, and not the type to make social calls. Of course. What's going on? I received a call this morning from someone who said they saw some concerning posts on your social media over the weekend, posts that might reflect poorly on the company. I tried to keep my expression neutral. What kind of posts? Photos from Friday night at Murphy's bar. The captions mentioned being free from controlling men and living your best life despite jealous husbands. Our company policy is pretty clear about social media conduct, especially when you're tagged with your workplace in your profile. Heat flooded my cheeks. I'd forgotten about those posts, made in a wine-fueled moment of defiance after my conversation with the girls. Those posts were about my personal life, Karen. They weren't work-related. When you list our company as your employer and post about marriage problems while out drinking, it becomes work-related, especially when clients and colleagues can see them. I'll delete the posts. They've already been screenshot and shared. Deleting them now won't undo the damage. Karen's expression softened slightly. Ivadne, I like you. You do good work here, but you need to be more careful about your online presence. This is a warning, not a formal reprimand, but any future incidents will result in disciplinary action. After Karen left, I sat at my desk feeling humiliated and angry. How had my personal posts even come to HR's attention? I scrolled through my social media, looking at the photos from Friday night. They seemed harmless enough, just friends having drinks and laughing. Then I noticed something in one of the photos that made my blood run cold. In the background, barely visible, was Jasper. He'd shown up at Murphy's later in the evening, and someone had captured him in the frame with his hand on my waist as he leaned in to say something. I didn't remember posting that particular photo, but there it was, with the caption, "Some people understand how to make a woman feel appreciated, nor living my beast life, nor no regrets." The photo had 12 likes and several comments, including one from my mother. "You look radiant, honey," and another from Jennifer, "Get it, girl." But there was also a comment from Eleanor, Caleb's mother. "I hope you're being careful, dear. Some things can't be undone." I deleted the post immediately, but Karen was right. Screenshots lived forever. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasper. "Saw the photo from Friday night. You look beautiful. Want to grab lunch today?" Before I could talk myself out of it, I texted back, "Yes, meet me at Café Luna at noon." Lunch with Jasper was exactly what I needed after the morning's humiliation. He listened sympathetically as I told him about the HR situation, positioning it as workplace overreach rather than acknowledging my own poor judgment. "That's ridiculous," he said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You're allowed to have a social life. It sounds like Caleb's insecurity is affecting every aspect of your life now." "I just feel so isolated. At home, at work, even my sister is taking his side." "You're not isolated. You have me. You have friends who understand who you really are." His thumb traced circles on my palm, and I didn't pull away. "Jasper, this is complicated." "It doesn't have to be. Life is short, Ivadne. You deserve to be happy." We talked for 2 hours, and I found myself sharing things about my marriage that I'd never said out loud before. How Caleb's quiet nature sometimes felt like indifference. How his predictable routines made me feel trapped. How I sometimes wondered what my life would have been like if I'd made different choices. "You still can make different choices," Jasper said softly. "It's not too late to choose happiness." When I got home that evening, I found Caleb in the kitchen, but something was different. He was making dinner for one, and there was a notebook open on the counter beside him. As I got closer, I could see dates and times written in his neat handwriting, along with what looked like printed screenshots. "What's that?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Just keeping track of things," he said without looking up from the stove. "What kind of things?" "Dates, times, conversations, social media posts, documentation." "Documentation of what?" He turned to face me then, and his expression was completely neutral. "Evidence." "Evidence of what, Caleb?" "Of the breakdown of our marriage. For legal purposes." My mouth went dry. "Legal purposes?" "Divorce proceedings require documentation of irreconcilable differences. I'm just being thorough." "You're talking about divorce?" "I'm preparing for the possibility. Given your statement earlier this week about choosing other people over your husband's feelings, it seems like a reasonable precaution." I stared at the notebook, trying to process what I was seeing. "You've been documenting our private conversations." "I've been documenting facts, times you came home late, social media posts about our marriage problems, text message conversations you've had in common areas of the house." "You've been reading my text messages?" "I've been reading the text messages you've left open on the kitchen counter every morning while you shower. If you wanted privacy, you probably shouldn't leave your phone face up with notifications visible." The casual way he said it made my skin crawl. "This is insane, Caleb. You're acting like some kind of private investigator." "I'm acting like someone who needs to protect himself legally and financially. You've made it clear that our marriage isn't your priority. I'm just making sure I'm prepared for whatever comes next." "Nothing's coming next. We had a fight, Caleb. Married couples fight. Married couples fight about money or chores or in-laws. They don't publicly humiliate each other on social media or have intimate conversations with ex-boyfriends about feeling suffocated in their marriage." "You saw the post?" "Everyone saw the post, Ivadne. My mother called me at work today. My sister sent me a screenshot. My co-workers were asking if everything was okay at home." Shame washed over me in waves. I deleted it. After it had been up for 6 hours and shared by multiple people. The damage is done. "I'm sorry. I was angry and I wasn't thinking clearly." "I know. That's why I'm documenting everything, for when you're thinking clearly again and we need to divide assets." The conversation felt surreal. This calm, methodical man wasn't the husband I knew. Where was the emotion? Where was the fight for our marriage? "Don't you want to try to work this out?" Caleb closed his notebook and looked at me with something that might have been sadness. "Ivadne, you told me you'd choose one night with your ex over my feelings. You've spent the last week proving that wasn't just anger talking. You've humiliated me publicly. You've confided in another man about problems in our marriage, and you've made it clear that you feel trapped being married to me. What exactly is there to work out? We could try counseling. Counseling works when both people want to save the marriage. Do you want to save our marriage? The question hung in the air like a challenge. I opened my mouth to say yes, of course I did, but the words wouldn't come. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure anymore. The attention from Jasper, the excitement of feeling desired and understood, the possibility of a different life, it all felt more appealing than the quiet, predictable existence I shared with Caleb. I don't know, I whispered. Thank you for being honest. That's the first completely honest thing you've said to me in weeks. He picked up his notebook and headed toward the stairs. I'll be staying in the guest room indefinitely. We can discuss logistics later. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the single plate he'd left in the sink, and realized that somewhere along the way, I'd lost control of the narrative entirely. Sunday dinner at the Hartley family home had been a monthly tradition for the 5 years Caleb and I had been married. Eleanor always made pot roast, Richard carved the meat with ceremonial precision, and Lydia usually entertained us with stories from her job at the veterinary clinic. It was predictable, warm, and exactly the kind of family gathering I'd grown to take for granted. This Sunday felt different from the moment we walked through the front door. Caleb and I had driven separately, which Eleanor noticed immediately. "Is everything all right, dear?" she asked, pulling me into her usual hug. But her embrace felt more tentative than usual, and her eyes searched my face with maternal concern. "Everything's fine, Eleanor. Caleb had to run errands earlier, so we just decided to drive separately." It was a weak lie, and we both knew it. Caleb had moved his belongings to the guest room permanently 3 days ago, and we'd barely spoken since our conversation about documentation and divorce. Richard shook Caleb's hand and clapped him on the shoulder. "Son, you look tired." "Long week, Dad. Nothing unusual." Lydia was setting the table when we walked into the dining room, and she looked up with her characteristic directness. At 25, she had never learned the art of polite pretense. "Well, this is awkward," she announced. "Are we going to talk about the elephant in the room, or are we going to pretend everything's normal while you two sit there looking miserable?" "Lydia," Eleanor warned, "let's just have a nice family dinner." "Mom, have you seen Ivadne's social media lately? Because the rest of the family has, and it's not exactly subtle." Heat flooded my cheeks. "My social media is my personal business, Lydia. Not when you're posting photos with other men and complaining about your marriage for the whole world to see. That affects Caleb, which makes it family business." I deleted those posts. After they'd been screenshot and shared in every family group chat we have. Aunt Margaret called Mom yesterday, asking if you and Caleb were getting divorced. Eleanor looked stricken. "Lydia, that's enough." "No, Mom, it's not enough. Someone needs to say what we're all thinking." Lydia turned to face me directly. "What the hell are you doing, Ivadne? You have a good man who loves you, and you're throwing it away for what? Attention from some guy you dated in college?" "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're having an emotional affair and trying to make Caleb look like the bad guy for being upset about it." "Lydia," Richard's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "That's enough. This is between Caleb and Ivadne." "Is it, Dad? Because Caleb's been coming over here twice a week for the past month, sitting in the garage with you, looking like someone died. And meanwhile, Ivadne's out posting photos with other men and making jokes about controlling husbands. Someone in this family needs to call that what it is." I looked at Caleb, who was sitting perfectly still, his expression unreadable. "You've been talking to your family about our marriage problems." "I've been talking to my father about legal advice," he said quietly. "Dad's been through a divorce. He knows what to expect." "Legal advice?" Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. "I've consulted with a lawyer, Mom, just to understand my options." The room fell silent except for the sound of Eleanor's sharp intake of breath. Richard reached over and took his wife's hand. "Caleb, surely you two can work this out," Eleanor said, her voice shaking slightly. "Marriage is about forgiveness, about working through difficult times together." "It is," Caleb agreed, "but it requires both people to want to work through those times. and it requires both people to prioritize the marriage over outside relationships. All eyes turned to me. I felt like I was on trial, with Caleb as the prosecutor and his family as the jury. I never said I didn't want to work on our marriage. You said you'd choose one night with your ex over your husband's feelings, Lydia shot back. That sounds pretty clear to me. I was angry. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. Do they? Caleb asked. Because you've had multiple opportunities to clarify what you meant, and instead, you've spent the last month proving that you meant exactly what you said. That's not fair. What's not fair is publicly humiliating your husband while carrying on an emotional affair with his former best friend. The accusation hung in the air like a bomb. Eleanor covered her mouth with her hand. Richard's expression hardened. Lydia nodded like someone had finally said what needed to be said. It's not an affair, I protested. We're friends. Friends don't have 2-hour lunches 3 times a week, Caleb said calmly. Friends don't text each other constantly throughout the day. Friends don't have intimate conversations about feeling trapped in their marriages. How do you know about the lunches? Because you work 6 blocks from my office, Ivadne. Because Cafe Luna has windows. Because your lunch hours have gotten significantly longer, and you come home talking about conversations you've had with a friend without ever mentioning which friend. I felt exposed, caught in a web of half-truths and omissions that suddenly seemed much more damning than I'd realized. I think, Richard said slowly, that perhaps Caleb and Ivadne need some time to discuss this privately. No, Lydia said firmly. I'm not done. Ivadne, I've known you for 5 years. I've watched you make my brother happy, and I've watched you become part of this family. But what you're doing now, this isn't who you used to be. This is selfish and cruel and destructive. Lydia, you're 25 years old. You don't understand the complexities of marriage. I understand the complexities of basic human decency. I understand that when you make vows to someone, you don't get to break them the moment someone more exciting comes along. I haven't broken any vows. Haven't you? What do you call spending more time with another man than you do with your husband? What do you call sharing intimate details about your marriage with someone who isn't your spouse? What do you call publicly humiliating the person you promise to love and honor? Each question hit like a physical blow. I looked around the table, searching for an ally, but found only disappointment and concern. I think I should go, I said, standing up abruptly. Running away won't solve anything, Richard said quietly, but maybe some time apart will give you both perspective. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, but Eleanor's voice stopped me. Ivadne. Honey, I hope you'll think carefully about what you're risking. Love like what you and Caleb have doesn't come along often. Don't throw it away for something that might not be real. I drove home in tears, angry and hurt and confused. How had I become the villain in this story? All I'd done was reconnect with an old friend who made me feel appreciated and alive. Was that really so terrible? But as I pulled into our driveway and saw the house where Caleb and I had built 5 years of life together, Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. What was I risking? And was whatever I thought I might gain with Jasper worth losing everything I already had? The week following the family dinner was the quietest our house had ever been. Caleb moved through our shared spaces like a ghost, polite but distant, present but unreachable. He'd wake up early, make coffee for one, leave for work without saying goodbye, and return in the evening to prepare solitary dinners that he ate while reading or working on his laptop. I tried several times to initiate conversations, but each attempt felt like throwing stones into a deep well. He would respond with basic courtesy, answer direct questions with minimal words, and then retreat back into his careful, controlled silence. Caleb, we need to talk about what happened at your parents' house, I said Tuesday evening, finding him in the study. What about it? Your sister was completely out of line. The things she said to me were hurtful and unfair. He looked up from his computer screen, and I was struck by how tired he looked. Were they untrue? That's not the point. She had no right to attack me like that in front of your family. She was defending her brother. I can't fault her for that. What about defending your wife? My wife hasn't given me much reason to defend her lately. The conversation died there, killed by the weight of truth I wasn't ready to acknowledge. Meanwhile, Jasper had become my lifeline. He texted me constantly throughout the day, sending funny memes, asking about my mood, offering sympathy for my difficult situation at home. Our lunch meetings had become daily occurrences, and I found myself looking forward to them with an intensity that should have been a warning sign. "You seem lighter today," he observed Wednesday afternoon as we sat in our usual corner booth at Café Luna. "Do I? I don't feel lighter. Everything at home is still a disaster." "Maybe that's why you seem lighter. You're starting to realize that you don't have to carry the weight of a dead marriage anymore." "My marriage isn't dead, Jasper. It's just complicated." "Ivadne, when's the last time Caleb made you laugh? When's the last time he surprised you or made you feel beautiful or told you he was proud of you?" I tried to think of examples, but they felt distant and faded. He's not that type of person. He shows love differently. How? By documenting your conversations for divorce proceedings, by turning his family against you, by making you feel like you have to apologize for having friends. Each question chipped away at my defenses. "You don't understand him like I do." "I understand him perfectly. I was his best friend for 10 years, remember? Caleb is controlling, judgmental, and emotionally unavailable. He always has been. The difference is that now you're seeing it clearly instead of making excuses for it." That evening, I found myself really looking at Caleb as he moved through the kitchen, cleaning up after his dinner for one. Jasper's words echoed in my mind. When was the last time Caleb had made me laugh? When was the last time he'd surprised me or made me feel special? "Caleb? Yes? Do you still love me?" He stopped washing his plate and stood very still for a long moment. "I love the person I married. I'm not sure that person exists anymore." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that the woman I married wouldn't have spent the last month choosing everyone else over her husband. She wouldn't have aired our private problems on social media or confided in other men about feeling trapped in our marriage." "People change, Caleb. We're not the same people we were 5 years ago." "No, we're not. The question is whether we've changed in compatible ways or whether we've grown apart." "And what do you think?" He turned to face me, and I saw something in his eyes that looked like grief. "I think you've already made your choice. I think you're just waiting for me to make it official." Thursday morning, I woke up to find Caleb's side of the guest room bed empty and his work clothes gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter. "Downtown 10:40 a.m. Bring forms. C." I had no idea what the note meant, but something about it made my stomach clench with anxiety. I tried calling him, but his phone went straight to voicemail. That afternoon, I met Jasper for what had become our regular coffee date. I was distracted, worried about Caleb's mysterious note and the growing distance between us. "You're thinking about him again," Jasper observed. "I'm worried about him. He's been acting strange, even for Caleb." "Strange how?" I told him about the documentation, the legal consultation, the note about forms and downtown meetings. Jasper's expression grew serious. "Ivadne, it sounds like he's preparing to file for divorce. But we haven't even talked about divorce seriously. We've just been existing separately." "That's what divorce is. The legal paperwork just makes it official." The possibility hit me like cold water. "I'm not ready for that." "Are you ready to fight for your marriage?" "I don't know. I don't know what I want anymore." "Then maybe that's your answer. Maybe the fact that you're not sure means you've already checked out emotionally." "Is that what you think?" Jasper reached across the table and took my hand. "I think you're a beautiful, intelligent woman who deserves to be with someone who sees how incredible you are. I think you're wasting your life trying to save something that was never right for you in the first place." "And what about you? Where do you fit into all of this?" Wherever you want me to fit. I've been in love with you since college, Ivadne. The only reason I didn't fight for you back then was because Caleb was my best friend. But friendship has limits, and watching him make you unhappy has tested those limits. It was the first time he'd said he loved me directly, and the word sent a thrill through me that was immediately followed by guilt. Jasper, you don't have to say anything now. Just think about what you really want. Think about whether you want to spend the rest of your life walking on eggshells around a man who documents your conversations, or whether you want to be with someone who thinks you're perfect exactly as you are. I drove home that evening with my head spinning. The house felt different when I walked in, emptier somehow. Caleb's coffee mug was gone from the kitchen cabinet. His jacket was no longer hanging by the door. Small things, but they added up to an absence that felt increasingly permanent. In the study, I found a USB drive labeled Archive A taped under the taxes folder in the filing cabinet. My hand shook as I plugged it into the computer and opened the files. Screenshots of every social media post I'd made about our marriage. Printed copies of text message conversations I'd had with Jasper. Photos from the night at Murphy's bar. Bank statements showing lunch charges at Cafe Luna 3 times a week for the past month. Everything was organized by date, labeled clearly, and documented with the methodical precision that was so characteristic of Caleb's professional life. At the bottom of the file was a document titled Marriage Timeline: Irreconcilable Differences. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark study, finally understanding that this wasn't about jealousy or control or insecurity. This was about a man who had watched his marriage die by degrees and had decided to protect himself from the inevitable conclusion. For the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. Friday morning arrived with an unexpected silence. No coffee in the pot, no note on the counter, no sign that Caleb had been in the house at all. His toothbrush was gone from the bathroom, along with his work shirts and the small frame photo of his parents that had always sat on his dresser. I called Caleb's office. Personal day. His cell went to voicemail. Panic rising, I drove to his parents. Eleanor answered, eyes red, voice gentle but firm. "He's not here, Ivadne. Please, I need to fix this. Some mistakes can't be undone. He showed us everything yesterday, the photos, messages, timeline. He's filed for divorce. Papers served at your office this morning." The world tilted. At work, the 47-page petition waited. Irreconcilable differences, asset division, screenshots of my emotional affair with Jasper, meticulously organized. Jasper's reaction was clinical. No-fault state, good for asset fights. He never mentioned his own divorce until then. His text later, "Dinner to celebrate your freedom," I deleted without reply. 3 months on, I signed final papers. Caleb looked rested, light, genuinely smiling. He'd been fair. House, savings, car for me, dignity for him. "I hope you're happy," he said, meaning it. He walked away, ring gone, briefcase in hand, peaceful, purposeful. I drove home to silence. Jasper vanished. Job prospects dimmed, family strained. I'd chosen excitement over stability, validation over quiet love. One careless night cost everything. Freedom arrived, but it tasted like nothing left to lose.